45% of Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency expense without going into debt. Read that again. A single car repair, one unexpected medical bill, an appliance breaking at the worst possible moment. For nearly half the country, any of these would mean reaching for a credit card, borrowing from family, or scrambling to figure out which bills can wait another month. That's the reality most people are actually living in. And here's what makes it worse. They know exactly what they're supposed to do about it. Everyone's heard the advice. Build an emergency fund. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Put something away for a rainy day. That guidance is everywhere. And yet, according to the most recent Federal Reserve data, only 55% of American adults have set aside enough to cover 3 months of expenses. Almost a third of adults said they couldn't cover 3 months of expenses by any means at all. Not by selling assets, not by borrowing from family, not even by draining retirement accounts. None of it would be enough. The standard financial advice frames cash reserves as protection against emergencies, insurance against the unexpected, a safety net for when things go wrong. That framing is accurate, but it's incomplete. Cash does protect you from emergencies, sure, but the real power of having cash sitting in an account runs far deeper than emergency protection. It fundamentally reshapes how you think, how you negotiate, and how you make decisions across every area of your life. Nobody really explains this part. Let me show you what I mean. What financial stress does to your brain. Researchers at Princeton and Harvard studied what happens to the human brain under conditions of financial scarcity. Their findings, published in a landmark study called Scarcity, Why Having Too Little Means So Much, revealed something genuinely unsettling. Financial stress doesn't just make you worried. It literally shrinks your cognitive capacity. When your brain is consumed with financial anxiety, wondering how you'll cover rent, calculating whether groceries fit the budget, mentally juggling which bills are due when you simply have less mental bandwidth left for everything else, complex decisions become harder. Long-term planning starts to feel impossible. You default to short-term thinking because your brain is too overwhelmed to process anything beyond the immediate crisis. The researchers called this phenomenon tunneling. Your focus narrows down to the problem directly in front of you, and everything outside that tunnel just gets ignored. The promotion you should be positioning yourself for, the health issue you should get checked out, the investment you should be making in your future. All of it fades into background noise while your brain burns its energy just trying to survive the current month. This isn't weakness, and it isn't a lack of willpower. It's a measurable, documented effect that financial pressure has on cognitive function. Now picture the opposite scenario. Imagine you have 6 months of expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account earning 4% interest. You know exactly where the money is. You know you could get to it within days if you needed to. That knowledge doesn't vanish when you go to work, when you're negotiating a raise, or when you're weighing a calculated risk. That cushion of cash does something profound to your psychology. It removes the constant background hum of financial anxiety. It frees up mental bandwidth for strategic thinking, creative problem solving, and long-term planning. It lets you operate from a place of security instead of desperation. And this psychological shift touches every decision you make, often in ways you don't even consciously notice. How cash changes your relationship with your employer. Consider how cash reshapes your relationship with your employer. The average length of unemployment in the US right now sits at roughly 23 weeks, nearly 6 months from job loss to landing a new job. That's the average. Plenty of people take longer. If you're in your 50s, working in a specialized field, or switching industries, that timeline stretches even further. Without cash reserves, this reality quietly builds invisible chains. You stay in a toxic job because you can't afford the gap between paychecks. You put up with a manager who undermines you because leaving feels too risky. You accept below-market pay because job searching while unemployed terrifies you more than being underpaid. Picture 2 people in identical roles at the same company, same title, same responsibilities, same manager. One has 8 months of expenses saved. The other is living paycheck to paycheck. When annual reviews roll around, both ask for raises. The person with savings can afford patience. They can push back on the initial offer, cite market rates, ask for another conversation. If the company says no, they can start job hunting without panic, waiting for the right opportunity instead of grabbing the first one that comes along. The person without savings operates from a completely different headspace. Every negotiation carries the weight of potential disaster. Pushing too hard feels dangerous. The ask shrinks. The acceptance comes faster. The settling happens almost automatically. Over a 10-year career, the gap in outcomes between these two people, identical in skill, experience, and work ethic, could easily add up to 6 figures in cumulative earnings. The cash cushion pays for itself many times over, purely through the negotiating confidence it hands you. Cash reserves flip the power dynamic. When you know you could survive 6 months without income, every conversation with your employer changes. Salary negotiations feel less desperate because walking away is a genuinely viable option. You push back on unreasonable demands because losing this particular job wouldn't ruin you. You take calculated risks, speaking up in meetings, pitching bold ideas, disagreeing with leadership when it's warranted, because financial ruin isn't lurking behind every misstep. You may never actually need to quit. The point is that you could, and that knowledge radiates through everything you do. Cash is leverage in every transaction. The negotiating power of cash extends well beyond your job. Researchers at UC San Diego analyzed millions of home transactions and found something remarkable. All cash homebuyers pay an average of 10% less than buyers who need mortgage financing. In 2025, that discount reached 9% across the broader market, up from just 4% 4 years earlier. Think about what that actually means at current prices. The median home in America costs roughly $410,000. A 9% cash discount works out to nearly $37,000 in savings. That's not a coupon or a special promotion. It's the premium sellers charge to cover the uncertainty of dealing with financed buyers. Why do sellers accept less money from cash buyers? Certainty, speed, and reduced risk. Mortgage transactions fail roughly 5–6% of the time. The buyer's financing falls through, the appraisal comes in low, insurance issues pop up at the last minute. Every one of those scenarios sends the seller back to square one, relisting the property, scheduling new showings, waiting on another offer that might collapse too. Cash removes all of those variables. The buyer either has the money or they don't, no bank approval needed, no appraisal anxiety, and closing happens in days instead of weeks. For sellers who have already bought their next home, who are paying carrying costs on an empty property, or who simply want the process over with, that reliability is worth accepting less money for. Obviously, most people can't pay cash for an entire house. The point is that having cash on hand fundamentally shifts your negotiating position across countless everyday transactions. When your car breaks down and you need a replacement, cash gives you options. You can buy from a private seller at a better price, negotiate without worrying about financing approval, and walk away from a bad deal because you're not desperate for whatever terms a dealership offers. When you're renting an apartment, landlords notice when someone can pay several months up front. When you're hiring a contractor for home repairs, cash payments sometimes unlock discounts they wouldn't otherwise offer. When you're negotiating with any creditor, your position improves dramatically the moment you're not borrowing from them. Cash is leverage, and that leverage compounds across hundreds of small interactions over the course of a life. The hidden poverty premium. There's another dimension to this that rarely gets discussed. People without cash pay what economists call a poverty premium, a hidden tax on financial instability that makes everything cost more. Consider the mechanics of daily life without a financial cushion. You can't buy in bulk when items go on sale because you don't have the cash for a bigger upfront purchase, so you pay more per unit week after week. You can't pay annual insurance premiums, which typically save 5–15% overpaying monthly, so you pay the higher monthly rate, essentially a fee for not having cash available. You can't maintain your car proactively, replacing tires before they're bald, fixing small issues before they turn catastrophic. So minor problems become emergency repairs at emergency prices. You can't shop around because time pressure dominates every decision. You need the thing now, so you can't wait for a sale or compare prices across vendors. You can't take advantage of employer benefits that require upfront cash flow, like contributing enough to capture the full 401k match or fully using a flexible spending account. Those guaranteed returns just sit there unclaimed because you can't absorb the cash flow hit. Add up all these premiums, and the annual cost of simply being broke easily reaches thousands of dollars. The less money you have, the more you end up paying for the exact same goods and services. Cash reserves eliminate the poverty premium entirely. When you have money available, you can optimize every purchase for value instead of urgency. The emergency fund doesn't just protect you against disasters, it stops the slow, daily bleeding that most people don't even realize is happening to them. Cash also captures opportunities, not just emergencies. Here's another angle that almost never comes up. Cash isn't just protection against bad things happening, it's the ability to grab good things the moment they show up. Opportunities rarely arrive on a convenient schedule. The perfect job opening happens when it happens. The best investment window opens when the market crashes, not once your portfolio's ready. A business opportunity needs capital right now, not in 6 months once you've saved up. Without cash reserves, you miss these windows constantly. The stock market drops 30% and everyone with cash on hand is buying at historic discounts. You're stuck on the sidelines with nothing to deploy. 2 years later, the market's recovered, and those buyers have locked in massive gains while you just watched it happen. A friend offers you a chance to invest in their business on favorable terms. The opportunity is real, the numbers make sense, but you can't participate because you have no capital available. A piece of real estate comes on the market below value because the seller needs to close fast. You can't move quickly enough, so it goes to someone who could. These moments show up throughout life. Most people experience them as frustration, things they wish they could do but can't. People with cash reserves experience them as options, things they get to choose based on actual merit, not financial constraint. Over a lifetime, the gap between missing these moments and capturing them creates enormous differences in outcomes. The part financial advice never covers. Here's the part most financial advice completely skips. Cash doesn't just give you negotiating power in explicit transactions. It gives you the ability to think clearly about every decision, including the ones where nobody's actually sitting across the table from you. Consider how financial stress warps major life choices. Should you go back to school for a new credential? Without cash reserves, the whole analysis gets skewed. The upfront cost looms larger, the period of reduced income feels more threatening, and the long-term payoff gets discounted because your brain is straining just to process anything beyond the immediate strain. Should you leave a relationship that isn't working? Financial entanglement makes this far harder than it should be. Shared leases, combined expenses, the cost of starting over, all of it carries extra weight when there's no financial cushion behind you. Should you move to a new city for better opportunities? The logistics become paralyzing when you can't afford the gap between leaving your old life behind and setting up the new one. In every case, the right decision gets clouded by financial fear. You end up making choices based on short-term financial constraints instead of your actual long-term satisfaction. And over time, these distorted decisions stack up into a life that feels smaller than it should. Cash removes the fear from the equation. It lets you weigh decisions on their actual merits, career trajectory, relationship health, life opportunity, instead of filtering everything through, can I afford the risk? How to actually build this cash cushion? So how do you actually build this cushion? The standard recommendation is 3 to 6 months of expenses. For someone spending $5,000 a month, that's $15,000 to $30,000. That range sounds enormous until you realize it's simply the product of consistent behavior sustained over time. Start with a specific target. Calculate your real monthly expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, minimum debt payments, then multiply by 3. That's your initial goal. 6 months comes later. Build it automatically. Set up a recurring transfer from checking to savings, time to hit the same day your paycheck lands. The exact amount matters less than the consistency. $200 a month becomes $2,400 a year. $500 a month becomes $6,000 a year. The numbers stack up faster than you'd expect once the behavior runs on autopilot. Put the money somewhere it can actually grow. High-yield savings accounts currently offer around 4–5% APY, more than 10 times the national average of 0.39%. On $20,000, that's roughly $800 a year in interest instead of just $78. The money's still liquid, still accessible within days, and still FDIC insured up to $250,000. You're just finally getting paid for holding it. Make the money slightly inconvenient to reach. This isn't about hiding it from yourself, it's about adding just enough friction that impulsive spending becomes less likely. A separate bank from your everyday checking, with no linked debit card, works beautifully for this. When you actually want the money, you can get it. You just have to initiate a transfer and wait a day or two. That small delay is enough to stop most frivolous withdrawals before they happen. Define what actually counts as an emergency versus what doesn't. A real emergency threatens your health, your housing, or your job. A great sale on something you want is not an emergency. Being bored or stressed is not an emergency. A new restaurant opening nearby is not an emergency. Clear definitions stop the slow erosion of your fund through 1,000 little rationalizations. The progression of financial security. The path to real financial security tends to unfold in stages. First, you stop the bleeding. Build $1,000, $2,000 in immediately accessible cash, enough to break the cycle of credit card emergencies, overdraft fees, and payday loans. For roughly half of Americans, reaching just this level would already be a massive improvement. Second, you build the real buffer. Grow that initial cushion to 3 months of expenses. At this stage, losing a job becomes stressful instead of catastrophic. A medical issue becomes manageable instead of ruinous. You've bought yourself time to respond thoughtfully instead of react in panic. Third, you reach genuine security, 6 months of expenses or more. This is where the psychology genuinely shifts. You're no longer operating from scarcity. You're making decisions from a position of strength, and the mental bandwidth previously eaten up by financial anxiety gets redirected toward building the life you actually want. How long this takes depends entirely on your income, expenses, and how intensely you focus on it. Some people hit 6 months in a year. Others take 3 to 5 years. The timeline matters far less than the direction. Every month you add to your cushion expands your options and shrinks your stress. Addressing the "but investing earns more" argument. There's a counter-argument worth addressing here. Some people argue that cash sitting in a savings account is lazy money, that investing would generate much higher returns. Why let $30,000 sit earning 4% when it could earn 10% in the stock market? The math on that is accurate. Over long stretches, invested money significantly outpaces money parked in savings. But this argument confuses two entirely different jobs. Your emergency fund is not an investment. Its job isn't to maximize returns. Its job is to be available, stable, and reachable exactly when you need it most. Markets can drop 30% in a matter of weeks. We watched that happen in March 2020. If your emergency fund is invested and your job disappears in the middle of a market crash, you'd be forced to sell at the worst possible moment. Your cushion would end up providing far less protection than you were counting on. Cash is different. The number in your account today is the number that'll be there tomorrow. No variance, no timing risk, no worrying about what the market's doing when your transmission dies. Think of it this way: you don't ask your house's foundation to generate investment returns, you ask it to hold the structure up. Your emergency fund is your financial foundation. Let it do its job. Once your cash cushion is fully funded, absolutely start directing additional savings toward investments, but the cushion comes first. It's the prerequisite that makes every other kind of financial risk-taking possible. The real cost of not having cash. The cost of not having cash is rarely one single dramatic event. More often, it's an accumulation of small compromises. You stay at a company that underpays you because you can't afford a job search. You accept the first offer instead of negotiating because you need the certainty. You skip a medical checkup because the copay feels like too much this month. You put an emergency on a credit card, then pay 22% interest on it for years. You pass on training that would advance your career because the upfront cost feels prohibitive. Each compromise feels small on its own. Together, they set a trajectory. 5 years later, you're behind where you should be in income, in health, in career progress, in life satisfaction, and you can trace that whole gap back to countless small moments where fear of financial instability was quietly steering your decisions. Cash reserves break this pattern. They give you room to make decisions based on what's actually right, instead of what's cheapest in the moment. They let you invest in yourself, negotiate with confidence, take calculated risks, and recover gracefully when things go sideways. The emergency fund isn't just protection against catastrophe, it's permission to live strategically instead of defensively. The path forward. The path forward here is simple, if not exactly easy. Calculate your monthly expenses honestly. Set your target at 3 months, then 6. Automate the savings so consistency doesn't depend on willpower. Put the money in a high-yield account where it grows while it waits. Protect it from yourself by adding a little friction to access. Then watch what happens. Watch how your thinking shifts as the cushion builds. Notice how negotiations feel different once walking away is actually viable. Pay attention to the decisions you start making from security instead of desperation. The specific dollar amount matters far less than the psychological shift it produces. At some point in this process, different for everyone, you'll realize your entire relationship with money has changed. You'll stop operating from scarcity. You'll start operating from choice. And that shift is worth more than any single emergency the fund was ever meant to cover.